So he's saying this one fundamental perception is that you are in a consciousness which is a witness. You are in a consciousness
which is?
Pardon?
Consciousness which is, what word we skipped?
Which is absolutely stable, infinite, eternal, featureless. It's like a vast stretch of nothingness, but it is conscious. Okay, there is the self, or you call it the Brahman, and you see the physical world as unreal. Actually, now Srendra is going to describe to us three fundamental experiences. When you make your mind silent and go to the self, there are three fundamental experiences. I just tell you that because I've just today, while I was in the bathroom, this idea struck me very, very clearly, because in the next 3-4 paras, he is going to describe these three experiences. The first experience is what the ascetics have. You rise into a consciousness which is vast, infinite, eternal, without features, but absolutely real. And you cannot speak about it because there are no features, no color, no shape, nothing. But it is absolutely real. It is so real that the physical world is unreal. And you describe this as you are in the Brahman consciousness and the physical world is illusion. Okay? So this is the first experience. The physical world has no reality at all corresponding to the Buddhistic philosophy. This is the first experience that he is talking about. The second experience is the consciousness starts becoming a little deeper and deeper, and you realize that you are Purusha. Purusha is a consciousness where there is an individuality, and that individuality is Purusha, but he seems to be separated from the force acting mechanically in the physical world. Okay, the force that you see, like the wind blowing, there's no consciousness in it. The river flowing, okay, there's absolutely no consciousness in anything. Unconsciously, mechanically. There is the second experience, and you call it the Purusha and Prakriti, and they are separate from each other. Okay, so there is the second one. Third one is when you start seeing that even in the physical world, behind the forms that you see, the limited forms, there is a divine consciousness. In the beginning, you don't see it, but as you go on, the consciousness becomes deeper and deeper. You realize that the divine presence is there, even in the physical forms, hiding behind the outer form. And then you realize that the supreme power is Ishvara. He is a Lord. He is impersonal, but he is also like a king. He is a personal aspect of the divine. And he is using all the mechanical force in the physical world. It is no more mechanical. It is absolutely conscious force. So then you end up with the third experience, which is Ishvara and Shakti. So these are the three experiences which he has given in Life Divine in 40 pages. Okay, the first experience, you are in a consciousness which is Brahman, and the world is illusion. This is where the ascetic stops, and the Buddhists also stop there. Experience, you are in the Purusha consciousness. Purusha is the individual consciousness. You feel yourself to be someone. Okay, even a person. You see the physical world as absolutely mechanical energy. It is no more an illusion. The second level is not an illusion anymore, but it is mechanical action. I said, like a machine working. It's not. It is working, but it is mechanical. There is a Purusha Prakriti experience corresponding to the Sankhya philosophy. And then the third level, when you go even deeper in, you realize that there is a person like a king. Okay, that person is like a king governing his own kingdom. And that is the Ishvara and the governance that you see in the physical world, which you first saw as illusion, then you saw as mechanical energy. Now you see that it's his own power. His own power he is using, wielding and creating all these things. So three levels. Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti. So when you are in the world is Maya. It is illusion. in the slightly higher level or deeper level, depends on how you look at it. Then you become the Purusha, and the experience of the world is mechanical action, okay, Purusha Prakriti, but they seem to be totally different, unconnected with each other. At the third level, there is a clear connection, okay, then, and that you become the Ishvara, you become the Lord, and you are using your power to create the world and govern it, okay. This corresponds to the Gitas and also Srivdas. Remember that when Srivda was in jail, okay, Sri Krishna came and guided him to understand the Gita, how to read the Upanishads also. So very clearly, these are the three levels which he has developed. And each one, when you are in the first level, you may not be at all aware of the other two. When you are in the second one, you may not be aware at all of the other two. When you are in the third one, you are aware of all. Okay? So you are aware that it can be the Purusha, Brahman, Maya, or it can be Purusha Prakriti, or it can be Ishvara and Shakti. This is what is described. Okay, so go back now. This is basically what is going to tell you in the next 3-4 paragraphs. So, one second, let me get the page. Yeah, I'm there at it. So he's saying, there is behind this look, okay? So the look of an eternal being. So I'm reading from there. Have you got it? It's on page 115, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 pages, 7 lines. There is behind all this life the look of an eternal being. Note the word look, okay? It is not something very, very hazy and haphazard. The look of an eternal being suggests a very conscious seeing, and that's a witness. Okay? You are the Sakshi. You are looking at everything with full understanding, but you have no power and you are not even interested in the power. You're just looking at everything as they are. At our consciousness, we don't look at things as they are. Our vital actually colors our view. But in this consciousness, there is no coloring at all. It's a pure looking at things. Okay? So you know the real nature of things. So there is behind all this life the look of an eternal being upon its multitudinous becomings. The look of the eternal being is Brahman consciousness. Okay? The multitudinous becomings, the physical world. Okay? There is around and everywhere in it the envelopment and penetration of a manifestation in time by the unmanifested, timeless, eternal. So he's saying that even in the physical world, you can see the divine presence in things. Look at the sentence carefully, you will see that. Okay? Then there is around and everywhere, okay? Around and everywhere in it. In what? The multitudinous becomings. The multitudinous becoming in the physical world. There is around and everywhere in it the envelopment and penetration of a manifestation in time by the unmanifested, timeless, eternal. So, timeless, eternal, you make it simple to yourself, say God. So, God is there in the manifested manifestation in time, and he is there, not he is enveloping and penetrating. So the envelopment would be the cosmic aspect and the penetration would be the individual aspect. He is going into each thing, not only human beings but even animals. His presence is there. Okay? So if you go back to the Gita, Ishwar Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Tishtati. So he is there everywhere and he is also there in everything. Language is very clear, you have to picture it to yourself. Now, Senu is saying, but this knowledge, this is where we have to read from today. But this knowledge is valueless for yoga if it's only an intellectual and metaphysical notion, void of life and barren of consequence. In other words, it's only a theoretical knowledge, it's of no use at all for yoga. It may be very useful for your theoretical knowledge. You may be a philosophy teacher and you may be explaining things to students and all in philosophy, but it has no value for life. It is not changing your nature. That's what Sandhya is. Metaphysical notion void of life barren of consequences. It has no effect on your nature. A mental realization alone cannot be sufficient for the seeker. So mental realization, don't think that it's level 1. Okay, there are some people who think it is level 1. No, because realization can only come never at the mental level 1, but at the level 2, the spiritual plane of consciousness. Mental realization, the spiritual planes of consciousness, where the mind starts from overmind and goes right up to the higher mind. Okay, comes down. Sorry, a mental realization alone cannot be sufficient for the seeker. Which seeker? The seeker of the integral yoga. It's enough for other seekers, but not for the seeker of the integral yoga. For what yoga searches after is not truth of thought alone or truth of mind alone, but the dynamic truth of a living and revealing spiritual experience. So, this very often in letters, Srirandu speaks about other people, okay, and when they ask questions about Krishnamurti or others, okay, there are many others, Srirandu says it's a mental realization. That doesn't mean to say it's the normal human mind. It is a spiritual plane of consciousness, but you are powerless. There is no consequence in life. If you are only a witness without any power, you are just looking calmly, and that's level 2. Okay. But in that level 2, as Srimda explains, when you start slowly deepening your consciousness, you see that there is a connection, and you start realizing that you have the power to change also. But the first impression is no power. Okay. What yoga searches after is not truth of thought alone or truth of mind alone, but the dynamic truth of a living and revealing spiritual experience. Dynamic truth, it has a change in your nature will change completely. Okay? Or partially, whatever. There must awake in us a constant indwelling and enveloping nearness, a vivid perception, a close feeling in communion. So look at the word constant indwelling and enveloping nearness. How can you get this? By constant remembrance. That's the beginning. You go on remembering the Lord in everything that you do. So then you start seeing the divine everywhere, not immediately, after a long time. Okay. There must awake in us a constant indwelling. Your consciousness will be fully in Mother and Sriramda and enveloping nearness. So it is inside, indwelling as well as enveloping. He goes on stressing this. Everything, in everything you will see the divine, but also in the cosmos everywhere you will see. Enveloping, widespread. Indwelling, concentrated in each form. Okay? A vivid perception, a close feeling and communion, a concrete sense and contact of a true and infinite presence. Always and everywhere. Eternal. That presence must remain with us as the living, pervading reality in which we and all things exist and move and act. Okay? We move and act, and we must feel it always and everywhere, concrete, visible, inhabiting all things. It's there in each thing, the divine presence. It must be patent to us. Patent means open. Okay? It must be very, very clear and open. It must be patent to us as their true self, tangible as their imperishable essence, met by their inmost spirit. We have to see the divine presence and understand that that's the essence of everything. That's the real, the core truth of everything. Tangible as their imperishable essence, met by us closely as their inmost spirit. To see, to sense, to contact in every way, and not merely to conceive this self and spirit here in all existences, and to feel with the same vividness all existences in this self and spirit is the fundamental experience which must englobe all other knowledge. So whatever other knowledge you have, scientific knowledge or whatever, you must realize that the divine is there everywhere. In very plain language, the divine is there everywhere. This is what is. Then it has an effect on the in life. It makes an absolute, totally different effect. You start seeing your nature changing completely. Okay? We go to the next para.
Shall I read?
Yes, please.
This infinite and eternal self of things is an omnipresent reality, one existence everywhere. It is a single unifying presence and not different in different creatures. It can be met, seen, or felt in its completeness in each soul or each form in the universe. For its infinity is spiritual and essential and not merely a boundlessness in space or an endlessness in time. The infinite can be felt in an infinitesimal atom or in a second of time as convincingly as in the stretch of the eons or the stupendous enormity of the intersolar space. The knowledge or experience of it can begin anywhere and express itself through anything, for the divine is in all, and all is the divine.
Very small para. We'll go back to the beginning of the para. This an eternal self of things. The divine presence, it can be an impersonal presence, or you can even feel the intimate presence of the God, or this infinite and eternal self of things. Note the two words, infinite and eternal. Infinite in space and eternal in time in the physical world. Outside, in the second level and third level, there is no space and time of things. Is an omnipresent reality. It is there everywhere. One existence everywhere. It is a single unifying presence and not different in different creatures. Be met, seen, and felt in its completeness in each soul or each form in the universe. So, the finite contains the infinite. That's the idea. It can be met, seen, and felt, or felt in a completeness, okay, full in each soul or each form, even the inanimate forms. You can see the divine presence everywhere, and it is infinite. Again, we go back to the idea of the experience of the symbolic story of Sri Krishna's eating mud. And when his mother asked him, Yashoda asked him to open his mouth and say, "What are you eating?" And she sees the whole universe inside. So this is an experience that you can have. Again, I'll go back to those four famous lines of William Blake. Okay? To see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. Okay? So the infinite and the finite are very much connected. Just like in our biology, we have the RNA and DNA. They are tiny, tiny, tiny atomic, and yet they contain the whole being. Okay? From that, the whole being can be constructed again. So that's interesting. For its infinity is spiritual and essential, and not merely a boundlessness in space or an endless. The infinite can be felt in an infinitesimal atom or in a second of time, as convincingly as in the stretch of the eons or the stupendous. We are reading the next para. This is what we read just now, no? Yeah, that's right. The infinite can be felt in an infinitesimal atom or in a second of time, as in the stretch of the eons or the stupendous enormity of the intersolar spaces. The knowledge of it can begin anywhere and express itself through anything. For the divine is in all and all is the divine. So, what the para is telling you that the finite and the infinite are always involved in each other. Even in an inanimate stone, the divine presence is there. And if you can contact the divine presence, you will see that everything is there in it. Whatever is there in the universe is there in the finite. Okay. So, go to the next para. This fundamental experience, seeing the Brahman consciousness in everything. Go to the next para. Sunki read, so now any one of you can read the next one.
I will read. This fundamental experience will yet begin differently for different natures and take long to develop all the truth that it conceals in its thousand aspects. I see perhaps or feel in myself or as myself first the eternal presence, and afterwards only can extend the vision or sense of this greater self of mine to all creatures. I then see the world in me or as one with me. I perceive the universe as a scene in my being, the play of its processes as a movement of forms and souls and forces in my cosmic spirit. I meet myself and none else everywhere. Not, be it well noted, with the error of the Asura, the Titan, who lives in his own inordinately magnified shadow, mistakes ego for the self and spirit and tries to impose his fragmentary personality as the one dominant existence upon all his surroundings. For, having the knowledge, I have already seized this reality that my true self is the non-ego. So always my greater self is felt by me either as an impersonal vastness or an essential person containing yet beyond all personalities or as both these together. But in any case, whether impersonal or illimitable, personal or both together, it is an ego exceeding infinite. If I have sought it out and found it first in the form of it, I call myself rather than in others. It is only because there it is easiest for me, owing to the subjectivity of my consciousness, to find it, to know it at once, and to realize it. But if the narrow instrumental ego does not begin to merge in this self as soon as it is seen, if the smaller external mind-constructed I refuses to disappear into that greater permanent uncreated spiritual I, then my realization is either not genuine or radically imperfect. There is somewhere in me an egoistic obstacle. Some part of my nature has opposed a self-regarding and self-preserving denial to the all-swallowing truth of the spirit.
You read very correctly, you corrected yourself. Mind constructed I refuses to disappear. So mind constructed I is obviously the ego. Okay? And the uncreated spiritual I is your soul. Because it is not created, it is eternal. Because it is a portion of the divine. So he is immortal and eternal. So these are the two things that he's talking about. And he's saying that if I realize it within myself first, because it is my nature is built in that way. But there are others who see it first in the cosmos and not in oneself. It depends on the nature. Okay. So we go back to the beginning of the paragraph. This fundamental experience. So what is this fundamental experience? Actually, he is saying, he is using it in the singular, okay? But the fundamental experience is the separation of soul and body-mind life, essentially. The separation of soul and body-mind life. Your consciousness of the soul comes out of the body-mind life, loses its identification with body-mind life, and realizes itself. And it's a consciousness which is static, witness and absolutely real. But you can't describe what it is. Your soul is become one with the vast universe, okay? And you are seeing the physical world as something separate from yourself. Your body, mind, life is only instruments given to you. Okay? That's what it is. Fundamental experience will yet begin differently for different natures and take long to develop all the truth that it conceals in its thousand aspects. So, here in this sentence, very clearly he is telling you that there are three ways that this fundamental experience can come. It can come either as Brahman and Maya, you can see yourself as the infinite consciousness, and you can see the physical world as illusion. Or if it develops slowly, he's saying, if it develops, you can see the physical world as mechanical action. Okay, it is not illusion, but mechanical action, and you are in a consciousness which is absolutely conscious. So that is the Purusha Prakriti experience. And the last one, as I told you, is the Ishvara Shakti. You realize that there is a supreme being who is like a king and governing his own kingdom. These three aspects also are very clearly enunciated in the Gita. Okay, the Sakshi, okay, Anumanta, Jnata, Bharta, Bhokta, Ishwar. This is the all the truths of this. So Srinath is following the Gitas, all of them in a slowly deepening consciousness. The very first experience, the world is unreal. And you are in a consciousness which is absolutely real. This is what he's saying. Look at the sentence carefully. This fundamental experience, the separation of your body with the soul, will yet begin differently for different natures and take long to develop all the truth that it conceals in aspects. The other two aspects of Purusha Prakriti and Ishvara Shakti is hidden. It is concealed. Okay? You will see these aspects also. I see perhaps or feel in myself or as myself the first eternal presence, and afterwards can only extend the vision or sense of this greater self of mine to all creatures. I see the divine presence within me. Or sometimes you may even see it as I myself am the divine presence. Same is so clear. See, I see perhaps or feel in myself. In that case, it is different. Within yourself, you are seeing. You are container, and the divine is contained in you. Or as myself. Okay? As the first eternal presence, you feel yourself to be the divine presence. So, if that is there, obviously you are the avatar. Okay? But if you see it in yourself, this is possible because it is in one place that there can be a partial avatar. Okay, he particularly says that about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, okay, who says that sometimes he is to behave like a sadhak. Okay, he is praying, and sometimes he behaves like the Lord. He becomes the avatar. Okay. He knows that he is the divine, and he can grant wishes, he can bless people, he has the power to do everything. So, very interesting, just this much. I see perhaps or feel in myself. So, you can either see or feel. So, the language is so precise. So, that also is possible. You can feel or you can see myself or as myself. So, there are four possibilities here. First, the eternal presence, and afterwards can only extend the vision or sense of this greater self of mind to all creatures. First, you see it in yourself, then afterwards, with development, you can see the divine presence everywhere. I then see the world in me or as one with me. Okay? So, you see the physical world in yourself. So, in the sonnet, cosmos is there within me. Okay? So, remember that sonnet where he says, Arcturus and within me. That they're the largest stars in the universe at that time. And they are burning within me, he says.
Is Rangada's voice breaking for everyone or just for me? I don't know.
I didn't follow. Tell me.
No, your voice, it's breaking. I don't know. It's only for me, my connection, or everyone else also feels that. I don't know.
Oh, also for me too. Your voice sounds clear, but as you speak, usually the ending part kind of almost disappear.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the same for everybody. Pallu has to say whether she is also hearing my voice is broken. Otherwise, it may be an individual phenomenon.
Mhm.
Can you hear me clearly, continuously?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
cannot.
usually. Oh,
Mm.
oh.
It's not broken, no?
For me, only the ending part of your saying Rangada. So 80% I can hear clearly, but the ending 20% is disappearing.
Yeah, it is
Mm.
breaking in between. It is breaking a little. I
Mm.
thought it was my problem, so I didn't say anything.
Mm.
Yeah.
Me too. It's everybody's problem.
I think my internet connection is quite good. So I don't know what the reason is, why it is happening. But
Mhm.
internet is, after all, a machine. So all sorts of things can happen.
Yeah, breaking is there, but I can still follow. I can listen like 80% or so.
Yeah. Yeah, even
can.
80% is there, 80-90% is there, but the 10% some is going away.
Right, right.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
It is true that even I am hearing your voices in a very, not broken, but very
Oh,
unsharp. Okay.
Mhm.
oh.
What the reason is for that. But when you are speaking, I am hearing in a very unsharp manner, not very clear. Anyway, what to do? We are subject to the vagaries of the world. So, simply say, I can say in myself or in others after. I then see the world in me or as one with me. I perceive the universe as a scene in my being. The universe is only a scene in my being. So you can imagine how vast your consciousness has become. The universe itself is infinite and that is only contained in your being. Okay, so you can imagine what the feeling would be. You have to imagine it because we have not had the experience. The play of its processes as a movement of forms and souls and forces. Okay, there are the forms, stones, and all things. Then souls. The souls are not only of human beings but animals and even the insects. And forces in my cosmic spirit. You see everything within me. I meet myself and none else everywhere. In fact, he has a sonnet which says, to whichever person I turn, I see myself with another face. Essentially, it is me only. So that's a cosmic consciousness very clear. Okay, this can come. The cosmic consciousness is not necessarily there. In the first experience of Brahman and Maya, there is no cosmic consciousness. If you remember in Life Divine, he says that when your soul or consciousness goes out of the body mind life, three possibilities are there. One, you are in a cosmic consciousness, which is rare, it's not very common, and you see you see yourself as one with the physical world, and the world is not unreal. But the first experience, I think 80 to 90% of the time is the physical world is unreal. It's an illusion. That's the first experience. But if you go on waiting like Sri Aurobindo did, you see the physical world as mechanical action, not unreal. Okay, so and I then see the world in me or as one with me. I perceive the universe as a scene in my being, the play of its processes as a movement of forms and souls and forces in my cosmic spirit. The cosmic spirit has now become my spirit. I have become one with the cosmic spirit. I meet myself and none else everywhere. Not, be it well noted, with the error of the Asura, the Titan, who has an ego. Okay? The difference between a god and an Asura, they are equal in power and knowledge. Okay, remember that. The Asura also has equally, so all our scriptures are always full of the fight between the Asura and the gods. But the Asura acts through the ego. He does everything for himself. Okay, so that's a difference. Not be it well noted with the error of the Asura, the Titan, who lives in his own inordinately magnified shadow. That is very interesting words. Inordinately magnified shadow is the ego. It's a shadow. Okay? Shadow of the self. Mistakes ego for the self and spirit and tries to impose his fragmentary personality as a one dominant existence upon all his surroundings. The ego is what creates fragmentation. The ego is what creates multiplicity in the physical world. So when you get out of your ego, which is in the mind, body and life to a certain extent, and your body and life, you start seeing the oneness of things and not the fragmentation. You start seeing the entirety. Okay, that's the difference. Tries to impose his fragmentary personality as the one dominant existence upon all surroundings. Or having the knowledge, I have already seized that reality that my true self is a non-ego. That's it. Having the knowledge is the first level, the Brahman Maya consciousness. I have already seized this reality that my true self is the non-ego. It is the true individuality. So always my greater self is felt by me either as an impersonal vastness or an essential person. There you are, you see. So you see him as an impersonal vastness or essential person. This is the experience of the Purusha. Okay? The essential person. But when you are seeing the impersonal vastness, is the first experience of the Brahman. The impersonal vastness is the Brahman. Okay? The essential person is the Purusha. Containing yet beyond all personalities or as both these together. So when you speak of the Purusha, he is a person and yet he is also impersonal. He can be both. Okay. When you are not impersonal and you are only a person, you are in the ego consciousness like you and me and everybody else. Okay. So illimitable personal or both together is the Purusha consciousness. It's an ego exceeding infinite. If I have sought it, now Siddhartha is using a very interesting language. He is talking about I. So you can take it in two ways. You can take it in the normal sense that he is talking about the one who is experiencing it in a very impersonal manner. Or you can even extend your understanding of things and say he is describing his own experience. And that's also true because he is basing all his writings on his own experiences. He says that very clearly. Okay, so when he is talking of I, it can be two meanings. He is meaning the general person who is experiencing this, or he is also talking about his own. There is a reflection of his own experience. Okay. And it is true, na? Because when he was in jail, first of all, when he was in Baroda, he had the impersonal experience. Then later on, when he was in jail, he seeing Sri Krishna everywhere. Okay, in the tree, guiding him intimately in everything. That's a personal aspect. Sought it out and found it first in the form of it I call myself. Okay, form I call myself is your body, mind, life. Okay, and your individual. Owing to the subjectivity of my consciousness, to find it, to know it at once, and to realize it. No, sorry, I missed a line. If I have sorted out and found it first in the form of it, I call myself, rather than in others, it is only because there it is easiest for me, owing to the subjectivity of my own consciousness, to find it, to know it at once, and to realize it. It depends on your nature. Either it can be seen outside or it can be seen inside. But if the narrow instrumental ego does not begin to merge in the self as soon as it is seen, if the smaller external mind constructed I, the smaller external mind constructed I, look at all the adjectives, very, very clear. It's the ego, refuses to disappear into that greater permanent uncreated spiritual I, which is the soul or the true individuality, then my realization is either not genuine or radically imperfect. There is somewhere in me an egoistic obstacle. Some part of my nature has opposed a self-regarding and self-preservating denial to the all-swallowing truth of the spirit. Okay? Saying it can happen. No? Even when you have gone into the higher consciousness, a trace of the ego can remain. Then you can have asuric tendency. That also can happen. So, stop today. It's 8:34. Monday, na? Oh, yes, gone out of Bombay. So next time we'll take up with on the other hand. Okay, he is going to now give another aspect of the experience.